Welcome to episode 10 of No Dice, a podcast series talking about female gambling addiction and stories of recovery across Scotland. I'm your host of the series, Kat Cochrane, and having been in compulsive gambling recovery for 4 years, I've been sharing my own journey towards the goal of a gamble-free life. As a content warning, this episode does cover themes of addiction and gambling behaviour. In this episode, we'll be covering the connection between young people in Scotland and their exposure to the gambling landscape under the title of Warning the Youth of the Dangers of Gambling Harms. While this series has leaned towards women's experiences around gambling harms and recovery, it feels essential to have an episode that takes time to explore why and how young people are particularly vulnerable to the potential increasing risk of being involved in gambling harm. And joining me as guests to chat about this topic are John and Sam from Govan Youth Information Project. GYIP are a non-profit organisation who aim to deliver empowering and meaningful work, and for over 30 years have been providing a wide range of services for young people in the Greater Govan area of Glasgow. Welcome, lads. I'm delighted to have you both join me on this particular episode of No Dice. Can we start by giving yourselves an introduction and sharing a little bit about the work you do here at GYIP?
I'm Sam and I'm a youth outreach worker for GYIP full time now. Before that, I used to be a young person that once attended the youth clubs and also the summer programmes, which is our biggest bit of work during the holidays. I then moved into volunteering, positive role model, which we have huge success with young people that get to help us out to learn how to become youth workers if they want to experience or go into that role. I then went into sessional worker for a good couple of years, and then this came up and I had to go through a wee interview stage to get it, so I managed to get it with my companion over there, but he's anonymous, so I won't say his name.
I had the exact same route as Sam and project youth worker at Govan Youth Information Project. My name's John Aitken. Thanks for having us.
No, thanks very much. The one thing I didn't say right at the beginning is we're actually recording here at GYIP. I've previously been recording at RCA Trust in Paisley, but the lads have actually been brilliant and asked me to come along to record here, which is great. And we're in this kind of top floor tenement building in the thick of Govan. It's kind of like going up these windy stairs. I wasn't sure where I was going, but it's worked out quite well. And we're in the GYIP podcast studio itself with Mr. Anonymous over there in the producer seat. That might be an ongoing thing through this. But yeah, so I was fortunate, lads, to see your presentation of the Booze, Bet, Bust project at the Glasgow Gambling Harms Summit at the City Chambers last month, and the project itself was undertaken by a group of young people researching the ripple effect of gambling harms in their own community. Can you share a little bit about that project, how it came about, and kind of what were the insights taken from it?
I'll start and then Sam can kind of give the young person's view, because he was a kind of member of the project at the time. So we done some training with Fast Forward about gambling harms, and as I kind of mentioned the Chambers that day, gambling wasn't really something we'd really thought about. We'd thought about it for adults, thought about it maybe myself personally and different things like that, but it wasn't really a massive issue. And then the women done the training and we loved the training, thought it was really good, thought it was really useful for young people. And then she mentioned that they had a wee fund that you could get maybe £1,000. So we came up with Booze, Bet and Bust, and the reason for the name is me and my boss, Kevin, were sitting and we were saying, why is there so many bookies right next to pubs where mostly guys would leave the pub, go put a bet on, go back, and it's all in these working class areas? And we often wondered, is it the same in different places across the country? Like maybe there's not too far for us, but in a different council area. So that's how that came about. I applied for the fund, was successful, and we went and delivered that. So what that consisted of was young people done a wee bit of the training that we'd done. So it was about a 6-week programme. They done the training that we'd done. And then on a Saturday we went out and we went to Govan and we counted how many different places there was that you could gamble in. So that wouldn't even include our newsagents, because one of the things that was highlighted to us was going into a shop and buying a lottery ticket or a scratch card or whatever. That's still gambling. going to a bingo is still gambling. And although that should sound obvious, it's not. You don't think it. You just think, oh, it's a bit of fun, it's exciting, whatever. So we counted all them up in Govan, and we're no surprise. We went to Bearsden and Mulgai, and between both those areas, it was nowhere near as close. We counted the pubs as well. It was just a bit like, you knew it would be the case, so you shouldn't be surprised. But we were surprised at the amount, the vast difference. And we then thought with the young people, is that on purpose? Or is that just an accident? And we delved into the reasons why. So maybe Sam can pass a wee bit on what he thinks.
I think when I first done the first one, I was 16, 17. So I wouldn't necessarily, I was gambling and stuff like that. I was a bit younger, but I knew what it was all about. But when we done the training with John that put us through it, it kind of opened the door. He's obviously been around Govan all my kind of life. You always seen it was closest to a bookie or a pub. As soon as you walked outside a pub, there was 2 or 3, even just outside this wee podcast bit, there's 3 or 4 right around the corner for us. So, but what we were kind of wanting to do when John and Kevin introduced it, maybe if we go to what we thought in our eyes is a richer, more upper class area, if we went and seen what their living situations were and how their kind of streets and shops and all that based. Like, obviously when we went down there, half of us haven't even heard of the names of some of the shops that are there. Ours is just local corner shops or news agents. There isn't even like, so when we went,
Whole Foods.
Aye, Whole Foods was
all these places.
Aye, we kind of didn't even know the name of them. So when we went,
Like £6 for a pack of muesli, that kind of price. Yeah.
it was shocking for us, even though that we knew when we were on the bus that we were going to see such a different environment. But like the houses, the cars, everything, when we went there, we were just kind of taken back by it and loved the experience that we could go earlier and see that the way they kind of live different to middle class areas are. So when we came back, we then obviously counted our sheets, and I think it was less than half. So I think it was like 40 something in Govan, and there was 19 altogether. And Bearsden and Mulgai put together, and that's mostly shops, I think.
Well, that was like shops, maybe news agents selling.
Aye, it takes in all.
It takes in all
gambling.
Sells alcohol, pubs, and most of the pubs were like fancy restaurants that you would go and you would have a drink with your meal or whatever.
Sure.
And it was eye opening. It was like, it was a bit sickening as well though, because you kind of were like, they're taking advantages. And again, saying this now, you know they're taking advantages, but it's disappointing. It's really disappointing, and there still needs to be more done. I mean, that was before COVID, so probably 2018-19. So that was 6 years ago, and then we done it again 2 or 3 years ago. And actually, what we found was there was less in Bearsden and Mulgai, and there was more here. Even when we done that training, the reason why it really stuck in my head was there's a Ladbrokes over there at the street over there, Burley Street. There's a Willie Hill on the same, however length away, a minute away, there's another Willie Hill. So there's actually a Willie Hill on the same road, and it's just like there's no need. That's 3 bookies within the space of stones throw away for each other, and there's just no need. But if you went into that one along the road, that was busy. You went into that one, it's busy, and you got into Ladbrokes, it's busy. Just in your face all the time, and how people could get out that cycle. And it's the same with pubs, because there's a pub there in the corner, there's 2 pubs across from each other, and then there's another pub in the other corner of the Govan Arms. So there's like 4 pubs in the same street, in fact 5. So
and what they do in pubs is put the slot machines within the pub atmosphere.
Yeah.
So you've got the best. I don't mean the best of both. That's the exact opposite I'm trying to say. But they've got the best of both, because they can be gambling for people who are probably going to be less inhibited because they've had a few drinks in the pub, and then they're getting the money out of both.
Aye, and that's the other thing. But we're no anti-drink or anti-gambling or anything. We're just trying to kind of harm reduce. But
that's what it's about, awareness.
It just makes you a bit fed up of that. That's why there's a cycle. That's why people can't get out of this cycle. And it's the hope. As people are like, oh, I've got a £5, I'll go put a bet on Real Madrid will definitely beat Barcelona, and then I'll go put a £5 on them, and Barcelona win. The hope's gone.
It's more for the target audience, isn't it? It's more that if you say to somebody in a middle class kind of poor, there's a chance that you win a load of money here if you put £10 on a kid that's got 10 teams that you think are going to win. It's no life changing, but someday for in here, that's why if you look up at Bearsden and Mulgai, people are going to be like that. Oh well, I don't really need to lose money if I'm.
I put £1,000 on a horse on Saturday.
That's so. Yeah. And even when you were talking about pubs, there kind of thing, most pubs have horse racing on the telly, because people that are a pub next door to a bookies, they watch the horse, they see who's on their favourite, they write on the wee books marks, and then they go into the bookies, put it on,
it's kind
come
of
back
revolving door
and watch it, so they know it. And it's not even as if it's just one. They're there all day because they know chances are they're going to be betting on horses all day. So I think it's more the fact that they know that if they win big, it could change that weekend or something, or if their wages isn't enough that week, let me go and try and make more money so that I can feed my family or whatever. So there is different aspects to it, and I think that's what the bigger problem is, that the amount of bookies here in Govan is that so many people thrive on it is because they actually want to change their kind of life around. Obviously money is a big deal, so if somebody can walk up to you and go, you can win $1,000 off a tenner, I don't think a lot of people would say no to it. So
yeah, it's a kind of well-known fact that there's optimism in working class areas, and the gambling industry kind of know this around the behavioural science, this idea that it is more feasible for somebody with a tenner to make £1,000, and even if they don't do it one time, they'll go back and keep on doing it. Whereas maybe people who aren't too worried and go to sleep worrying about how they're going to pay bills and things like that doesn't work in the same way. They don't have that same optimism. Therefore, they will only be spending the last tenner. They will only be going to those extremes.
And that's why they have money, because they're better with it, because they've got more to work with. What I would kind of caveat it with is we have seen loads of football players getting into this bother as well. I mean, it's in their face as well. I mean, they can't even. I mean,
some of their shots will. Some of their shots
most football tops now are.
Going to come back to the football thing for kids later on, sort of thing, so we can come back to that. I'm not really a big fan of statistics, but there is some ones that I wanted to kind of highlight, and it kind of brings in where we're at with young people. So to give a bit of an insight of the wider picture, the stats that I have are going to actually shock a few folks. So in the last 14 years, there's been an Ipsos poll done on behalf of the Gambling Commission, and it's always been called the Young People in Gambling Survey. It's had the same name that whole 14 years. Now, the latest poll was conducted last year in 2024, and it does cover England, Wales and Scotland. So 27% of 11 to 17-year-olds had spent their own money on gambling activity in the 12 months prior. 62% of young people surveyed had seen gambling ads online, 64% offline. A quarter of the same survey agreed that gambling made them happy, and the same amount stated that they lived with somebody who they'd seen gamble. So the thing about these stats is they might not mean a great deal in isolation, but within the context of year on year, they've increased since the poll started, which kind of proves the direction that the whole situation is moving in regards to young people and gambling. Now, my own personal take in this is that while these stats are spread across the UK, they're bound to be higher in areas such as here in Govan because of the exact reasons that's been highlighted through Booze, Bet and Bus project. The higher the levels of exposure of gambling equates to the higher levels of consumption in gambling. That's a no-brainer. So I would imagine the research taken from the project, informed by the youngsters and yourselves at JIP, has there been any project work done around gambling harms in the Govan community since Booze, Bet and Bust, or is there any perhaps in the future that you plan to do?
As a project, we do a lot of off-the-cuff stuff with kids. Yeah. Once this kind of came to our attention, and that was one of the things we found out after Booze, Bet and Bust, was so many young people have online betting accounts, and that was a shock. But I think it goes back to gambling's probably not as much a taboo as what maybe drink or drugs or whatever it is. Yeah. And I think parents probably think, well, if they're doing it through an app that I can see, it's not as bad. But I do believe it's their money as well. So I don't know. It's probably one of the things they're going to do it anyway. It's just about us trying to educate them to harm reduce. The same way if we're out street work, we'll speak to young people and say, right, okay, you're drinking or you're doing whatever. Just make sure you're having some water or having a soft drink or whatever. Just in between, try and be safe and don't leave your pals yourself. Go home with them. Make sure you are in groups all the time. All that kind of stuff. I think that's probably the stuff you're going to have to do with gambling, because I don't think you're going to stop them. You know, we've all been teenagers ourselves. Somebody tells you not to do something, you're going to do it anyway. So I think it's probably more a harm reduction message we try and send out. Probably in Govan way how many bookies there actually is in the G51 area. There maybe should be more done.
You feel as if it's like the Scottish Government should be coming in and seeing, taking some stats and doing some project work and connecting with yourselves, and
and we did do some other work because obviously it links to a lot of mental health.
Yeah.
So we were talking a lot about that. But no, I don't think there's been much done in Govan in terms of gambling, and it's probably more. In fact, we just spoke to somebody. Me and Sam used to play a game of sevens and a Wednesday, and one of the guys was saying, he's like, "Oh, what he's up to?" And we were saying we were on this podcast tonight, and he's like, "Well, what about old codgers like me? What he's doing for me to help me stop gambling?"
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of rung true, because there is loads of people out there that probably wish they could try and control that a wee bit more, but it's that kind of habitual thing that they go and do it. It's a Saturday and they go put a coupon on.
Mm-hmm.
Put a coupon on myself the more,
It's part
like
of life,
Saturday.
yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
part of what you do.
That's it.
But I suppose it's just about trying to put it out there to the young people that
Mm-hmm.
be careful, don't overdo it, like set limits, all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
It's more out there than it's ever been.
Mhm.
So like if you even talking that we obviously help with youngers, that there's these streaming platforms and TikTokers and Instagrammers now that happily put videos up on YouTube and them on slots betting like 30 odd grand, 40,000. Then you've got people that bet millions on blackjack and casinos, and it's not as if they can't go on and watch it, because as soon as you go into their profile, it's everywhere.
Yep.
And you've got these people that have made millions obviously from it, but they're not obviously not revealing how much they've lost for it or how much debt they're in and stuff like that. And you've got like Dana White, UFC promoter and multi-millionaire kind of guy that goes when his spare time and goes into like a big casino and videos he sells playing blackjack and baccarat and stuff. So, and these young people, I think it was Twitch had it, and they actually banned gambling streamers off their web platform completely because they realised how bad it was getting. And as soon as they banned their platform streamers, 2 new platforms came in to then take these streamers back and put it just as a full streaming platform, because how many people actually watch these guys press a button and boost on slots and how much money these guys kind of won. So, and the fact that when we were kind of younger, me and John and stuff like that, it was more on, like you would see it on a board or you would walk by and it was a bookies. More these young people now, as soon as you open your phone,
Yeah.
it's either an ad or it's somebody they know, or you swipe a line on a reel and it's this guy winning 25,000 on one bet. So you kind of get away from it. And for us, it's more just trying to tell these young people that, listen, it might look all this fancy lavish lifestyle, but this could just be a full-on folks where these people are.
and they're probably getting backed by
There's a
somebody
price-
as well
Aye.
behind
Well, this
them.
is it, isn't it? Is that it's like, you know, how legit is the money that they're using?
Mhm.
Are they being sponsored even,
Aye.
you know, behind the scenes by the
And-
gambling
but-
companies?
but-
As Sam says as well, it's a moral thing, because I mean,
Mhm.
as he's saying, Twitch have said, right, no gambling on ours, and then 2 come along and they're willing to say,
Aye,
nah,
take the
we're
void.
getting out.
And
Yeah.
they're paying these guys multi-millions just to sit on a computer all day and
Yeah.
press a button. So it's, as you said there, you don't know how, if they're sponsoring them or not. And it's out there that these big companies are sponsoring these big streamers to
Yeah.
boost all these platforms. And if they use a code, they get money off it and all that stuff. So it's,
Well, it's the excitement
Mhm.
thing as well, isn't it? Because you'll even sit and watch poker videos and all that.
I love poker, but it's more the fact that when you watch these kind of people and they play with like 3 million, 4 million pound or like 4 million US dollars, but these guys fling it away as if it's
Yeah,
absolutely
it's like
nothing.
Monopoly money or
And
so.
you're
Aye.
sitting there watching going,
Yeah.
imagine if you had 4 million and you've just threw it in one horn.
It's like you were saying earlier, you know, that thing about drinking drugs, you would assume for young people, they need to be out, you know,
Mhm.
they're out the house. And then with kids being in the house and parents thinking, okay, they're safe, you know, they're on their phone, I'm likely to see what they're on their phone, but things that are on their phone, they can't harm them as much as what's going on out there.
Uh-huh.
But yet, gambling harms can have families under the roof, you
Yep.
know, because the mums could be doing like the slots. This sounds so sexist and generalist, but this is the facts that, you know, a lot of the women are doing the kind of online bingo and online slots. Dads could be doing like the coupons, but it could be like 40 accumulators ready for the weekend, and then like the boys and the girls are upstairs in their rooms, and it's like 4 separate gambling things that can be
Aye.
going on in the one family. Nobody really knows what each are doing. You know, they might all know that they're doing a little bit, but especially the parents don't know what the kids are doing, that kind of thing, and it can really unravel because of that online thing of like, right, I know what my kid's doing because he or she's under my roof, but
But we always talk about all the times that you'll have a drink. So when somebody's born, you'll have a drink. When somebody dies, you'll have a drink. When it's like a birthday or a wedding or a funeral or whatever it is, like it's always drink. And I think it's like you then get the wee things like, oh, my mum's going to the bingo, I'll go to the bingo where Sam used to go to the bingo, didn't you, Sam?
Big time.
he
Loved it, man.
he likes the bingo.
Loved it.
But I'm trying to think, like the Grand National. Oh, I'm will put a horse on. I mean, I even do it. I'm not saying anybody should be judged for doing that. I'll do it. I'll say,
that's a pure comment. Like your ma used to pull out a newspaper and lay it there, and you used to
choose
either pick up the colour or the
colours.
My oldest daughter, she won it last year, so it's like, or this year. But you're like,
that's a culture thing.
That's like
my first memory
thing.
of gambling was the Grand National. I've spoken about this a lot because my mum sent me in when I was 18 and I was legal to go in because she wouldn't go in because that wasn't a place for women, but she sent me in. And I remember going in and going, and the first thing I noticed was there wasn't a ladies. And I don't think there's a ladies in many bookies even to this day, you know. But I remember going in and thinking, right, and it's probably similar because I didn't know enough about horse racing, so I liked the name of that jockey or the name of that horse, the colours or whatever. But I was convinced, even in that early moments of like, that was the first time of gambling, was I was coming back in that bookies and I was going to collect the winnings. You know, it was like the die was cast. I speak about this a lot, but it's almost like satire talking about the Grand National now and how people get into it. And like I do want to also accentuate that I'm not a Puritan when it comes to gambling because I know that, like, say for example, the money that's been raised from like the National Lottery, all those £1 and £2 of people over the last 30 years that are put in, and I'm sure you'll probably get some money at the National Lottery.
Yeah, because we were sitting feeling guilty because we've had Youngstart for it'll be 4 years now. It'll be 6 years when it comes to an end, but one of the guys had mentioned about, oh, well, if you get National Lottery funding, like, there's a moral thing there. And I was like, oh, hold on. We've just got another 3 years.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if it helps your young people, then
that's it.
That's really ham. Yeah. I mean, if I don't know if I'm right in saying this, but like, are GamCare or these other ones, are they not funded by betting anyway? So
they're funded by when they get fined for doing things out with the regulations, which are pretty lax anyway. So they really need to be doing something pretty bad. Like, for example, if there's certain ones that haven't followed certain rules that have been set, and then they get fined heavily, and that pocket of money is a lot of the money which a lot of gambling charities get. And there's people that have went to GA and they've had big arguments in GA because they know that maybe somebody in GA works for a gambling support charity. It's like, well, you're kind of taking money off the devil kind of thing, you know.
To me,
so
I mean, the lottery, obviously they give us money, but it does seem to me a wee bit like, well, how much can you press? Because without gambling, you don't exist. So can you press too much? So I think that's maybe a slight problem. Maybe we need to look at that, like more RCA trusts, more fast forwards, like more charities like that doing work. Because if the person who's doing the damage is the person that's giving you the money, then it's not great. I heard a good saying the other day: if somebody sets fire at your house, you don't let them put the fire out. So it's the same with gambling. Like, I don't. Yeah,
it's a big argument within the supports harms, and I think what a lot of people were hoping for is that the levy would come in, and the levy would be such that would cover that would basically be the tax that would be taken off the gambling companies, so that they wouldn't need to rely on the fines, because then that would be kind of. But then again, that's just a different source of income. It's still the same, so you could probably go round and round with that. And then what they do is the gambling firms move around, like they might, like, for example, there's a lot of like ones that they're set up in Gibraltar or the Isle of Man. They're 3 and 4 steps ahead of the government.
That's why you don't see. That's why you don't see much of like the paper accumulators and the paper like horse. When I was younger, it used to be the paper the only thing you could use with paper. But now when you see a paper one, now you're like,
it seems
like
archaic.
Totally. Somebody turns around and goes,
well, that's funny you said that. I'll not mention the betting company. The one I use online, they're in Gibraltar. Yeah. So when you make the payment, it comes up Gibraltar. I've always wondered why, so that must be why.
Yeah, it's all offshore tax stuff. Yeah, Isle of Man is another big one. Yeah, there's a few like that. There was something that I was reading and just doing a little bit of research, particularly around young people and gambling harms. So actually the first NHS gambling clinic for children opened up in London the year before COVID, supporting young people as young as 13 years old. And that shows the extent of the problem as was seen at the time. But you can just imagine like how that's probably increased since COVID and the lockdowns. But the thing is, unfortunately, in Scotland, NHS Scotland doesn't have anything like this. And there isn't even a pathway where a child or an adult can go to their GP and say, I've got an issue with gambling, and then the GP will use that as a pathway to get them into gambling support services. There's a real disjoint there. But we know more people are particularly vulnerable and impressionable to gambling due to the ads that crop up on social media and when they're playing games on their devices, video games that include elements of gambling such as the social casinos, esports, loot boxes and microtransactions are all examples of these features that are designed to entice young people into potential gambling harm behaviour. Chances are gambling ads are not going to disappear anytime soon unless there's an amnesty. But what can we do in the meantime to educate young people in combating that bombardment of gambling ads that we see everywhere?
There's that much out there that I feel like it's so hard to even put a stop to it. Even when you're talking about young people, there's young people out there that are 6 and 7 and 8 that go into their computer games and they see this skin or they want a FIFA pack or something like FIFA points, V-Bucks, and young people don't see that as a form of gambling or such or these young people just think, oh, I want this cool skin or I want to have this skin because my pals go to it and stuff like that. So in a sense of that, then obviously parents are going to go, oh, well, I can get you that skin. It's like £9 something or whatever. So in a sense of that sense, I don't think there's ever stopping that kind of computing gaming companies to stop it because that's where they make most of their money for. Because it's the same if they took that out of the game, like Fortnite's free to download and stuff like that. So if they took this big V-Buck thing out of the game and like battle passes, and they wouldn't make as much money as they ever would, and they have competitions now where they pay people if they win. But then you've obviously got when
plus Fortnite are worth 6 billion. It's
so
no bad for a free game in the first instance.
That's what we're saying. So if you stopped
exactly.
all the form of gambling or the form of helping these young people get the best loot in the game or whatever, if they stopped that, they wouldn't be worth anything because it's free. So if you ended up turning around and said to some young person, listen, take that away, or like, you don't need that skin, that young person's going to then go into school one day or whatever, or go to their pals and they're going, oh, how have I got this and you've not got that? So that young person's going to feel a need that they need that kind of thing to join in with them. And there is things that are, oh, if you've not got that, you can't play with me.
Yeah.
Same with Pokemon and stuff like that. Obviously, Pokemon's now becoming a bigger deal than what it kind of was years ago, and Pokemon Go, and then you've got like new Pokemon trading cards now where people trade these cards for fortunes now, and same with now ball, basketball, baseball. So you've got that much out there. I feel like to try and even combat on it or even come down on it is so much harder, even for younger people, because now all they do is sit on a phone. You can't take a phone off a young, like it's the same on iPad, YouTube, that sense of where like, obviously parents kind of watched, oh, I watched their stuff and I like banned or whatever. Even if they banned their like when you're on the App Store and you need to put a password in to download the game, even to go into that game, you're seeing all these wee trailers of what they kind of want. So
chances are as well, when even these daft mobile games you've got, like
as soon as it comes up, it's like 99p for to come back alive or like to get some coins to back. So it's
dog gambling, and then even like they've got these mad daft made up videos, adverts of like, oh, get 1,000 free spins and you'll get this jackpot, and it's all made up and it's all like a wee storyline, and it's just
you play like a game, and it's at first it's like fake money, and then when you start playing it, and then they tell you, oh well, if you put this into it and you start playing for real money, then you can win. So there's never ever a fact. There is games out there, don't get me wrong, there's games there that probably don't use money or whatever. Most games is in your phone, computer. There's in every game there's a store where you can buy something with real money. It's used on real. Even like there used to be the things where it was like your app, and if you like watched 5 adverts or something like that, or if you done like a game, if you done a game changer, you would make money for it. And people used to think, oh, this is quite cool. If I can make money for this, I'll do it. But what they didn't realise is that you actually had to pay money in to play these kind of things. So it's
probably even when Sam was younger, when yourself at Christmas or a birthday, you'd be like, oh, I want this toy, or I want this football strip, or I want this, or I want that. Now it'll be, I want $3, I want a voucher for the PlayStation, I want a voucher for FIFA, I want whatever. And again, that's all gambling because of the excitement of, oh, if I get the FIFA points, I can buy that pack.
Like these like, oh, it's Christmas time, so there's going to bring out these new skins, or they're bringing out these big packs where I can get one of the best players
so
in the game.
It's almost replaced their fun. That is their fun now. That is their pastime. They're playing the PlayStation. Like
when I was younger, it was a bike. Like when I was younger, me and my wee brother wanted like the BMXs and stuff. It was like stump pegs at the back. You used to take your pals to a park and they would ride on the back. It was as if you're getting something to the back. But now you don't even see it. Now, like, well,
it is true. Like that is what's happening, and I think it goes back to the only way. And Sam is sadly right that there's so much out there that it's really. I don't know if us three around this table could really say how they stop it. I think it goes back to the moral thing.
It does.
Like,
it comes back to that.
Yeah, they need to get their morals in check and go. This is affecting too many people in our country. Let's stop it.
If you look at how much that Denise Fingley for Bet365, mate.
Well, she's the richest woman in Britain, and our house is like a fortress because she's probably so worried that one of her family members are going to be held hostage because she's got the money to, you know. I mean, she's not living in the real world anymore. That is the amount of money that she has made. Yeah. And she's made it in a relatively small amount of time because Bet365 was like one of the first. I didn't mean to mention the name, but we know what we're talking about here. She's the chairman of or CEO of Bet365. And obviously they were kind of like the forerunners for the online gambling, and everyone else has just followed suit, followed their tack. Now, the fact that she's been able to make that amount of money from the profit of gamblers in that relatively short time, you're talking about maybe 2007, 2008, and then maybe 2010 when it started really taking off. She's made that amount of profit in 15 years. That's the kind of where we're at in terms of the power that the gambling industry holds. But just to kind of cap what we were saying there about, you know, like the games and kids and everything, I think what's happened is, just to kind of encapsulate it a bit, is it's like a gamblification of games, you know, and it's kind of like trying to tap into that thing is what happens with adults, especially online, is that dopamine hit. You know, when you get the loot box and it ends up being like Ronaldo or Messi, and it's like that biggest dopamine hit, and that's what you're looking for. So if you're having that when you're 8, 9, 10 years old, then it kind of follows suit that you're going to be chasing that into your teens, into your adulthood. And that's why it's so dangerous, because the gambling industry know that. They're trying to find a way to kind of grab kids as young as that through loot boxes and such.
I think the main problem with it, even to stop it, is it's more scary to actually say this. A lot of young people's idols are people that gamble or like put some amount of money into these games. Like the game FIFA 26 just came out just recently, and one of the top streamers on the game had every best player in each position possible, but because of FIFA gave him the money to make it look as if this guy spent a fortune opening all these packs, which it didn't. But these people are watching going, oh well, if he can do this, surely if we put a bit of money in, then we can get to this level. So it's more of the fact that it's so hard to actually think of a way to try and stop it, because it's so in their face.
Because if we go back to the woman with Bet365, she's made billions or whatever in 15 years, and you look at all these. I mean, there's a rise in billionaires anyway post Brexit. No, I get too political. I'll try and not get too political, but are we then again the biggest issue then is for people is immigration, and we'll obviously not get into that. But is gambling maybe a bigger problem for us than immigration? Is alcohol misuse, drug use, homelessness? These are all bigger issues, and the problem is the people in charge aren't looking at the issues that
it's diversion.
It's diversion because they don't want to upset these people that probably line their party's pockets. So again, sorry not to get too political, but I do believe that that's what's happening. We're here to talk about this, but and that's what we're getting diverted for the real issues, and her making that money, which I didn't realise that made her the richest woman in the UK or whatever. But that's scary. That's where then we need to do something about that then. Cause
I mean, the only kind of political thing that I bring into it is just the fact that the Gambling Act came out in like 2005 when it was like the kind of Tony Blair government, and that feels like a long time ago, because it kind of was like 20 years ago, and it was designed for an analogue gambling world. But along came online gambling, and then obviously smartphones, and the Gambling Act hasn't caught up with that. And then also the levy hasn't caught up with that. So really, like for example, when the Labour government came into power like last summer, and then it was the first budget, Rachel Reeves had a chance to make a precedent with the gambling industry, and she shat it. You know, I don't know that will even getting edited out, but she shat it because she could have made a precedent, because for the 14 years previous, the the Tory government were never going to push that.
Yeah.
But she had a chance as a kind of forward-thinking Labour government. But now they'll never get that back, because there's another autumn budget coming up soon, and she's not going to turn around and go, oh, well, I didn't date last year, I'll date this. Do you know what I mean? She's not going to do that, plus all the carry-on that she's got to deal with anyway. So that was actually one opportunity to kind of make a difference, where changes could be seen, a little bit of power taken back for the people from the gambling industry, because they're the ones that, pardon the pun, that hoard all the cards because of the money, so it's a tough one. But it is okay to talk about maybe your own experience of gambling and what learnings you can kind of take from it, and it's good or bad stuff, because like we say, we're no Puritans, It's like,
I probably still kind of put a bet on every probably weekend for the football and stuff. There probably was a time a wee bit ago that it probably did get a wee bit out of control, and I was chasing things and thinking that, if I put that money that's away into, and you do chase it, and you do get down a kind of wee hole, but it did kind of show me and wake me up to think that that's something that can happen. You need to be careful. But for me, I've got that kind of under control, and I put on what I can, and I set limits and all that. I think it's quite easy to go down that spiral if you're not really careful.
Yeah.
I was about to say the same thing. I put football coupons on or whatever, but I don't spend an absolute fortune. I don't even put limits on, which can tell you, if you say to somebody, oh, you don't put limits on, it probably means they use a fortune, but I really don't. I put, I think it's like 50p or £1 on.
It's your own mental
and it's
limit.
a weekend. I don't even, for about 18 or something like that, when you first kind of get your thing made, to then I was quite bad. Used to be like every couple of days, like Champions League, then you had like your football the weekend, so it would be quite a couple of days a week. But to now, I don't even think about it as much. Even I watch it. I love football. I watch football, but now I don't even get to the point where I actually think about putting a bet sometimes on. Sometimes sometimes you get it where you could go like, oh, I could have put one on there and I could have won a wee bit of money, but I don't even get to the point to actually, like, if I'm struggling, like if I put money in and then I'm like, oh, why have I done that? I don't do that. I used to bet on horses quite a bit. I still put a horse on, but I'm no ridiculous way. It's like £10 or something like that, so it's not really big in terms of that, and it's once a weekend, so it wouldn't be that way where I kind of struggle. But I did it, and it's probably a culture thing where you've seen your dad going up to the bookies and putting a wee ack on at the weekend, and you kind of get that buzz when you used to watch them, think, oh, I've won this, and I do it, but not to the extent I think some people are it.
It's good that you have both got a kind of mental or emotional radar around. You're thinking, right, I can't. There's a certain amount of money that would never get spent. That would never get back in. That that's like you do it, but there is a limit. You've got this mental and emotional limit, but most people have, and the majority of the country has. Even though there's bombardment of advertising, and I think that's great, and I think like that is the healthy kind of gambling that that should exist and does exist. Don't get me wrong, it does exist. But it's like, that's where I wish I was, because that would mean that I wouldn't be making this podcast, because it wouldn't mean that I was in recovery, it wouldn't mean that I'd had an issue with it, etc., etc. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like, sometimes I think to myself, is it about the individual? Is it about your nurture or your nature, whatever? But what my point is like, it's good that you guys gamble and it's not an issue for you, because that's the way it should be.
Yeah. But I think, I've got probably quite an addictive nature, so there is that sense that I know sometimes, oh, right, that's too much, pull that back in.
Aye.
It's always, I'm the same as Sam. Aye, just be careful spending money you don't have.
Yeah.
I do think it is not an individual thing, but I think it is a kind of thing. Obviously, when you talk about it, and it's all like how you get brought up or what you've kind of been around, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's learned behaviour sometimes.
Aye, so, and I think there's people out there that obviously have came through bad gambling and then turned it around. It's more, I think it's just if even people, like, if they have a lot of money, not a lot of money, but if they have money spare, and they sit there and go, oh, what do I do with this kind of money? Or can I flip it and make more? So I think it's just the sense of, if you've kind of got that mental stability to go, well, if I put £1 on that, if I lose that pound, it's not going to hurt me as much if I put £10, £20. That £20 could have went to like your food shopping or something. So
it's having a handle on the consequences in it, and I know that's probably when I'd realised that I'd crossed the invisible line of gambling being an issue for me, is when I didn't care about the consequences of the last tenner or the last £100 or the last whatever it was, so like just being the other side of that invisible line and having that handle on it is, that's
I think
crucial.
it's more, if you're especially if you're younger, like, obviously I'm young myself, I don't have any kids or anything like that, so then you've not really got any responsibilities. If you stay with your ma or something like that and you're only paying like digs or something, so then you're like, oh well, look at all the money I've got sitting here. If I can then spend that and I don't really need to worry about it, or if you're not really spending money on shopping and stuff like that and your stuff's all there for you and it's all sitting there, so if somebody turns around to you and go, oh, why don't you put £20 on and see what can happen with it? Somebody's obviously going to go, oh, why don't we try it? And as soon as you get lucrative in it and your body starts getting the thrill of it, because as we all know, if you put a wee bet on, you're obviously going to be excited if it comes to come in, or as soon as you see that wee cash out bit. Most people, as soon as they see more profit than what they've put in,
that happened a lot when I first went to GA, and I noticed that not so much for the older guys, but a lot of the younger guys, or maybe like in their early 20s, but they'd started when they were 17, 18, maybe even younger. And what had happened was they had a really big win early on, and then they thought that was like the kind of baseline. That's the normalcy. So that big win became the chase. You know, a wee bit like, say, when somebody takes heroin and it's like that euphoria that they get, and then they're chasing that, like, you know, because they're just that dopamine hit. So that can happen. That can be the worst thing that can happen to somebody young, is that really big win, whatever a big win is to you. Do you know what I mean? And then you're just like, oh, that's normal. I'm just keep
you
going
get
back
a bit
to
of
that.
bravado, because I remember I was going to Florida and I had a bet on, and I was waiting on, it was both teams to score or something, and I was waiting on Higuain to score for Napoli, and he did. And that buzz was like, oh my God. And I think that as you go chase, like 100% with sport, you go chasing that. And I think that's the danger, like that wee high, because I was quite.
See when that, I remember when that used to happen to me, and I used to think that's me that did that. That's me that, because that was my bet, you know. And then it's like you feel like you're on top of the world, but when it doesn't happen, it's like
you
the
regret
low
it.
is so,
You regret even putting it on.
Well, we do our football podcast up here, and we do predictions for the SPFL. I think we're lucky if we got one each.
It's a good thing we don't bet on our predictions.
See, I used to be a sucker for because I used to live in Bridgeton. I used to go past the Willie Hills there, and it would be something like I don't know, Celtic versus Motherwell, and it'd be like 3-1,
and the odds.
And I was going to say Izagiri. I don't know where that came from. Kyogo to score first goal, and that would seem totally feasible, because Celtic would beat Motherwell 3-1. Kyogo would score the first goal, but see, to even get that like over a season, but in your head that's feasible, and that just makes you actually, you know, because even down to that, which actually leads me on to one of the questions I was going to ask around branding, because that's a really big thing. You know, like we've all got our kind of favourite brands in gambling, so there's this idea about brand awareness. Like when I was gambling heavy, I had my favourite gambling sites, like my go-tos, and that would be projected this brand awareness, and it was about trust and loyalty to them, which meant that I felt more favourable to their offer and perhaps the gambling industry overall in the beginning, which in turn made me gamble again and again. There's like passive gambling ads that young people see here, such as TV, billboards, and while they're all maybe not engaging with them directly, as opposed to the ads that come up on their phones and laptops, they're making just gambling a kind of seem a normal activity. But do you think there's perhaps a digital literacy programme that maybe can come through the schools from a young age, so that kids are maybe armed with the knowledge around like that idea of branding and advertising and just having that upper knowledge?
I think there should be something about that, but I think, to be fair, and I don't often stick up for schools, I think maybe they're getting asked to do too much. I think a lot of it should come back to maybe organisations like us doing something like that. But I think the schools are getting asked to almost bring kids up sometimes, whereas I think parents and society as a whole should maybe start taking a wee bit more responsibility, and it probably shouldn't even come down to us, but that's what we're here for. If it wasn't happening, then we wouldn't be here. I think maybe that's something that we could look at maybe doing, and then we could deliver it in schools. I think schools are under so much pressure. Boys in particular, they work in schools more now, but the schools are struggling. The schools are so understaffed, under a lot of pressure. They've got loads of different issues that young people are facing now, that I think even if you floated this to them, I think they would be where we were before we done booze, bet,
It'd just be another headache for them.
It would probably be another thing where they go, it's not the biggest issue we are facing, so I don't think we should challenge it. But that's not to say somebody like us or another organisation out there could do something like that. Definitely, it's in their face. I mean, digital, definitely online, but I think we mentioned it earlier, the biggest brands that are flogging this is like Celtic, Rangers, Everton, all these football clubs that have all got sponsors.
I support Celtic and Everton, by the way.
Oh, there we go. So I support Celtic and Newcastle. So Newcastle, what's their sponsor? I'm too old to buy strips with sheer on the back now, so I stopped doing it. But
That's showing your age.
that was my hero growing up. So I think they're the biggest problem.
Yeah.
And football is the biggest problem, because I dare say, probably outside America and Europe, that must be the biggest thing that's getting betted on, must be football. It has to be. You're even betting in play for the next throw-in. So I think they need to take Glasgow City, for example, which again we mentioned at the summit. They don't have any betting sponsors. They don't have any alcohol sponsors. And I think football clubs should start taking a leaf out of their book. I'm sure if Michael Nicholson or anybody was sitting in front of me, they'd say, well, nobody else is going to give us the money that Dafa Bet gives. But again, it's the morals. Do we just not have morals anymore that we say, right, this is probably doing more harm than good? I dare say in the 60,000 fans at Parkhead, there's a good percentage of them that are maybe going through a wee bit of a gambling addiction, and the last thing they need is to see is a gambling sponsor all about them. And
well, when you go into Parkhead, they used to, I don't even know if I think they still do it. They had the bookies inside.
They do.
The
The kiosks at the concourses.
You can just put one on in there. So there's so, like when we attended obviously the City Chambers thing, I got asked a question, and it was if there was anything what could help with young people, and the one thing I said was to bring something into schools, where that's something that we could kind of get taught and be able to bring into schools to help these young people actually realise that no, everything's a good thing with gambling. There's obviously a lot of people out there that struggle with it massively, and that it's so easy to catch on to and so easy to get caught onto. But the other thing I would say is that even when obviously John mentioned about the schools and stuff like that, see the summit that we had at that City Chambers, the one thing I said back to it was is to have something like that for young people. Well, even that we were all together, so we were all partners, so we all kind of meet each other, but to have like a couple of high schools and where people for different gambling companies like the John Hartson one and us and people there held like a big summit like that, but for young people, for like 5 years, 6 years, kind of that age group where they're leaving school, going into college, becoming 18, being able to have their own accounts rather than using maybe their parents and stuff. So the first two things I said was to have something in schools where these young people can kind of learn it before they get to the age where it's fully in their face rather than just on their
it's
phone.
Like that forewarning and that knowledge.
I think to have something like that for young people, where these young people all over Glasgow could come to this big
and
event.
actually be part of the design of what it should look like.
Like we would say, like everything we do, like whether it's a trip or whatever, we always consult young people. We always speak to young people and say, right, would you use one a day?
It's no ever anything that we want to kind of do it.
So something like where the young people are involved, because we would do it about drugs, we would do it about alcohol, we would do it about different things like that. So if gambling's an issue, then let's tackle it. And as Sam says, I think that's a great idea. And when it happens, it should be called the Sam McCann Summit.
I just think having young people's voices and something like that, and especially if they are trying to target these young people that are getting to that age where they're going to be so involved in that kind of phase, that if you can kind of nip it in the bud and try and stop them from going to the excessive thing, like even when you first go into, there is a limit thing that they put, like they go, if you don't think you can put a limit. But if you're a young person, don't know, well, if I put a limit on here, what happens if I want to put more on that kind of month for stuff? So I think if you kind of taught them, like, oh, listen, that limit thing you can change if you're thing with, but it'd be a good thing to put on to start with and see where you can go for kind of there.
Because that's a good point, because it's so easy to change the limits, and it's so easy to change, like, you'll have these wee, like, rest periods where it'll come up and say, oh, you've been playing for this long, do you want to, you're just going to continue playing. It's like when I put the timer on Isabella's telly, she just turns it back off. It's that easy done.
It's no foolproof, these
No,
limits.
it's not really a stopgap. They say, we're doing
stop
this.
and think. Gamble responsibly.
It's like but we've done this. Like, it's not your fault they've clicked continue playing.
It's token gestures, those things.
Yeah, so don't put the continue playing button on there then. Just cut it off.
Put a log out for half an hour or something, or no like one that you press the log out, because knowing people, if somebody said to you, oh, log out that account because you can't play it for often, or somebody's going to go, well, you can't tell me about today. But if that app had an automatic thing, well, listen, you've played it for 2 hours, why don't you take like a 30-minute break? It's the same with studying. People always say, like, oh, if you're studying for something, don't study too long, take breaks
because
during it, because your brain's
it's the
just
opposite.
going to...
If you're studying for too long, then you're
Your
starting to not take anything in anymore. When you're gambling for too long, the reality around you starts to become blurred. So it's a kind of similar thing where your mind is shifting in a way that it shouldn't be. So yeah. Okay, so final question, lads. I know this is a bit of a biggie, and we've covered some of it a little bit before, but what changes would Jip like to see in terms of just in terms of protections? You know, what could the gambling industry actually turn around if they made an announcement tomorrow and say, okay, this in theory protect young people? What would that look like for you guys?
I just seen it, I think it was recently, where X made where you need to put ID in, like to be on certain content. As I was saying, obviously with young people having a lot of idols in these big kind of worlds, I think something like that, like where you can put like an age limit to watching certain stuff. I know it might be, if we can see it everywhere, why can we not watch it? But if you can kind of stop it for where these people kind of just put their phone down and they could sit and watch this for hours. I think something like that, where it's like you need to be 18 to watch this streamer or whatever, or if this kind of content.
I think we've spoke about quite a bit, like with the football teams, but like if you were to watch that Train Spotting, I don't think you would go and try drugs, would you? So so it kind of puts you off. So if football teams started saying, nah, we're going to stop putting gambling
Making
advertisements.
gambling uncool.
So you then go, kids would then go, well, wait a minute, there must be something no too great with that. So if you take it away, they go, that's not great. We used to have a rule in Jip years ago about can you wear football tops, and it used to drive me nuts. When I was a young person, all I had was football tops, so it used to really annoy me. And when I became a full-time worker, I'm like, we need to change that. We need to get football tops back in. So we did, because it's that way. If you say, you can't wear a Select top, you can't wear a Rangers top, kids then go, oh, there must be something wrong with somebody that wears a Rangers top. I'm not talking to you. You then start creating that thing in their mind where they start thinking, well, what's wrong with that? I think now, like, we've never, I mean, touch wood, we've not once have we had any sectarianism at all. We've never had anybody like come to us and complain and say, oh, because he wore that Celtic top, he's been called this, or because he wore the Rangers top, he's been called that. Never once. So it just proves if you make it the norm, it's the norm. So the norm is betting's everywhere, and betting's cool, and betting's a thing that people do. If you take it away, and football teams made a statement saying, right, football community's no using football sponsorships anymore, people then start changing that mindset and go, right, there must be something happening here that I'm missing. What is gambling causing? So that is the thing I would do if I had a choice tomorrow. I would.
On the football team thing, I think it would be brilliant if football teams could stop it. But if young people are then seeing who they look up to in football doing it, and these people making, there was a story where a Juventus player done it, young boy, I think he was 19 or something, and he was actually loaning money for his teammates to bet, and then it got to a point where he owed somebody so much amount of money he couldn't afford it because he wasn't even on that bigger contract at like the club.
Have you ever seen Paul Merson's documentary? He talks about that and how it's like you're so young, you've got so much money, you haven't to get financial literacy, so to speak, and then the rest of the afternoon is yours.
The big thing I took out that was to even see somebody like that who openly admits that he used to, as soon as he finished football training, it was like the stupidest money, because he thought, oh, I'm on these big massive wages, I can put 20,000 on a betting. It's
a wee bit like when people come out the army or the military, you know, it's like civvy life, civvy street is so boring, you know, it's like so they're chasing other, and that's why it's an issue sometimes with a lot of folk in armed services and such. But for me, I'm hoping that one day, or the gambling ads, they're all going to look as daft and as satirical as what cigarette adverts look like now. Because obviously there was a change where that smoking became like a public health issue, and people treated it with statistics obviously showed that it was lung cancer and other kind of heart attacks and heart disease and everything. And then something happened. Then there was a change, and then it's like, no, don't smoke, that's uncool. And then a lot of like famous people you only see with cigarettes, whereas 30, 40, 50 years ago everybody was smoking.
It's like that Mad Men thing where they were all like glamorising it, and it was
smoking on in planes and stuff like that. So there has to be some kind of sea change where maybe it's like gambling becomes sort of uncool in a way, or it's seen as such a big public health issue that it can't go back the way it has to, you know, in the right direction.
With the fact they're obviously gone like boring and stuff like that, I think in the younger generation that a lot of money gets made on their phones. A lot of people out there that they obviously stock markets, trading, stuff like that. But if these young people didn't do that in a sense, or if there wasn't so easily to make money on your phone nowadays, I think it would have been an easier way to make gambling and such as a boring kind of form. But if you're then looking at young people going, well, if you don't, if this guy doesn't tell you he's a millionaire on his phone by making money, then you can't do it, or if like, so such as that. But it's also the fact that obviously if you turned it into a young person and went, don't do that kind of thing, it's no cool to somebody, and somebody turned around and went, well, if it's no cool, how can I walk about with these kind of shoes or this jacket or this kind of such thing, and I've bought it for making money on my phone? Because I think it's such a big thing now where all these people out here and all the stuff that they look up to is people now saying that they make this amount of money for doing something so simple.
It's like capitalism is one, capitalism and celebrity and this idea of who our heroes are when we're young. Heroes nowadays are like influencers or celebrities.
So
and one gets replaced and another one comes along quite easily. They're quite...
It's funny, like, when you say about heroes like Alan Shearer growing up, scoring all the goals, like, he's still the record scorer. If I was to say, who's that? Highest scorer on the league he's watched every single week.
Aye.
But they think football was only invented like
yesterday.
Aye. Everything before 2000 didn't count, or even before the 2010s.
Totally.
Football didn't count. It's true what you said about the uncool thing, because we'll talk to young people about drugs, and some of them will take certain drugs and think that's all right. But if you were to say, would you take heroin? They'd be like, no, I'm not a junkie. And that's not our language, that's the language they'll use. So it's that thing where heroin's been seen to be this junkie drug, whereas other drugs are cool.
I think that's when you were saying about fags and that, they're like, for non-smokers, see when you seen the back of fag packets, where you used to see like people's feet and their mouth and all that stuff, and you used to go, oh, that looks disgusting. But see somebody that smoked, they wouldn't ever look at the back of the fag packet, they'd only see the front.
You'd only see what you wanted to see.
And I've always said, even like with movies, when you see a cigar, people look at that and go, oh, that guy just looks cool because the way he's smoking it, or the way he's just sitting there and stuff like that. So if people see it and go, oh, well, he's quite cool, or like when you watch Peaky Blinders, you always see Tommy Shelby with a fag and he smokes and that, and people, oh, he looks pretty cool when he's done there with a suit. So it's all that kind of sense of these people think that these kind of things are cool, but then don't realise what it can actually do to themselves. They're just thinking that it's, oh, I'm going to go do what exactly he's doing.
And they changed like smoking with vaping, because vaping became cool.
That's it. Well, again, like smoking, cigarette industry suffered, so something had to fill the void, and vaping is what it is, because there's too much money to be lost, so something's going to come in. You know, so there's always a void being filled.
And I'm embarrassed to say I've been caught up in the vaping train.
There's more people I know vape than that I've never seen them once with a cigarette and with a vape.
I don't vape hardly ever, but like a couple of times I've been out, I've had a few, and I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
I think it's weird for me to say it, because I've never even touched one or like a fag or anything like that. But I think it's actually so easy now for people when you go out and you smell it, or you even smell it, or
I
like
wish it was the smell for me.
So it's like the flavour
Was
and
it
stuff.
the watermelon, John? Was it the kind of raspberry?
It was like the one that tasted like an ice blast. That was
so it's like it's gonna be there in front of you. Like if somebody turned around and went, oh, that's for me. I don't get it, to be honest. I've never have got it, but like for somebody, if you turned around to somebody and went, take a wee shot at it, somebody's not going to go, oh, this is going to affect me. Somebody's just going to try it and see what it kind of like.
Totally. Listen, lads, thank you so much, John, Sam, anonymous producer McCann. This has been a brilliant episode to hear your insights and advice and learn so much more about what you do here at JIP. Thank you so much for being guests and being part of the No Dice podcast series. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you this afternoon. In the next episode, we'll be talking with my special guest, Emily, who is a few years into her gambling addiction recovery, in an episode titled Personal Growth Beyond Gambling, where we'll be discussing what life can look like when healing and self-improvement overtake addiction. So thank you so much for listening, and catch you next time on No Dice, a 12-episode series discussing female gambling addiction and women's recovery journeys across Scotland.